Hi, my name is Robert. This video is designed to give you step-by-step detailed instructions on completing the task at hand. Please read the comments in the About section of this video. It has valuable information and updates. My YouTube channel has a disclaimer video that I encourage you to watch. And please like, share, and subscribe. I hope you found what you're looking for. Thank you very much for watching. In this video, we're going to replace the rear suspension system in this 2006 Buick RainIer. The airbags are leaking, so says another mechanic. You can either replace the suspension with a standard shock and spring setup, or you can replace the airbags and keep the system as it is stock. In this situation, I'm going to help my buddy do the conversion. We're going to install a standard spring and shock setup. You can get these kits online anywhere from $160 to $200, something like that, shipped to you. What basically happens is the airbag suspension system starts leaking. Either the bag starts leaking or the connections that go to the bag start leaking, and you can hear the pump cycling off and on, airing them back up after they've lost a little bit of air. If I hear it airing up in a second here, I'll record that so you can hear the pump running. Okay, this is how the suspension sounds when it's airing up. So what we're going to do is one side at a time. We're going to jack the vehicle up, set the parking brake, block the wheels, pull the tire off, support the vehicle under the frame, lower that axle as far as it'll come down. We're going to puncture the airbag to let the air out of it. Then we're going to break loose the bottom of it by wiggling and lifting up on it. Lift the airbag, turn it just a little bit counterclockwise, work it out. There's really no attaching hardware. After we get the airbag out, we're going to take the shock loose, remove it. We're going to passively install the new shock. Then we're going to work in the new spring. The springs will have to be compressed. They just sit in the seats, no attaching hardware for them. And then we're going to raise the axle, finish installing the shock, put the tire on, and lower that side of the vehicle, then work to the other side. Tools and equipment I used was a couple of jacks, the vehicle jack and the scissor jack, jack stand, couple wheel stops, some bricks also for wheel stops, torque wrench, an 18 and a 19 millimeter deep socket, short extension, the 3/8 ratchet, some medium strength Loctite, razor, screwdriver, pry bar, the lug nut wrench, and some snips and some zip ties. Also had the adjustable jaw wrench. And you'll also need these loaner tools from an auto parts store, unless you have your own. Okay, there's my spring and my shock, and that's a Monroe product. Next, I'm going to remove the hubcap with a screwdriver and break the lug nuts loose. Next, you grab the tabs in the middle of the back seats, lift them up, and there you'll find your jack and your jack tools. Your lug nut wrench is there as well. With this style jack, this is where I decided to jack it up from, the bottom of the stabilizing bar, which lifts the rear suspension up with it. Once I get it up high enough, I'm going to support the vehicle on the frame with some jack stands. Okay, now when you jack the vehicle up and support it, you need the suspension to extend itself as far as it can, from my knowledge. So I supported the jack stand under the frame in front of the wheel, and I'm letting the vehicle down on it. Now the jack is all the way retracted, and I still don't have the jack from under the car. So I'm going to get another jack, jack it up here to get that jack from under there, and then I'm going to let it down, and it should be fully extended. Okay, I jacked the vehicle jack up a little bit. I put this scissor jack under it. Now I'm gonna get this jack out of the way, and then I'm gonna lower the scissor jack. So let me go ahead and lower the scissor jack. Make sure that this don't get overextended, but I need this extended as far as can. That's the only way I'm gonna be able to get that bag out and get the spring in. Now the back of this side of the vehicle is fully supported by this jack stand, and there's nothing under the suspension here, so I should be able to get these parts out of here and get the spring back in without any issue. So next thing I'm supposed to do is puncture this bag and let the air seep out of it. Okay, I'm gonna try this box knife to puncture that. Watch your eyes and stuff, and cut into that till you hear the air come out of it. Once you get the air out of the bag, the bottom of it lifts off of the lower mount, and the top of it looks like you actually turn it a little bit counterclockwise, then it drops down. Then from there, you'll see the little air tube up there. Just take a little wire snip and cut that air line loose from the top of it. And there it is. I have the unit sitting out, the airline clipped off, and the bottom of it out. There's really no mounting hardware. Next thing you're going to have to do is take your spring compressors and compress your springs down. And you got to remember, this just barely came out, so you're going to have to almost compress your spring as small as that is. So here I go, compressing the springs, and just crank them in. Try to crank them in evenly. You know, go a ½ inch at a time on the threads. ½ inch here, ½ inch here. So maybe 3 or 4 rounds on each one, going back and forth, and rock those springs down until they're tight enough where you can get them installed. Now that the airbag is out, I'm gonna go ahead and take this strut off. So you want to put something under here, the jack, to support the axle, but go ahead and pull this bolt out here and that bolt out there and take out that shock. Okay, the top bolt came out. The actual nut is a bracket that is held in place like that. So I'm gonna put some Loctite going back in with that. And the bottom one came out with an 18 millimeter, and I used just a crescent wrench on the other side to hold that. So I'm probably going to torque that stuff back on at about 60 foot-pounds, and I'm going to put thread lock on it so it shouldn't back out. I don't know what the proper torque spec is going in on it. Go ahead and put your top bolt in, and you may want to get your spring in place before you connect your lower bolt, and you'll have to maneuver that to get it in place properly. Okay, I compressed them down to where they almost fit. They were tight, but the top of the spring compressors was just about touching the frame if you look way up there. So I grabbed the crowbar from the car, and I pried it under the end of the spring and pulled it over into the spring seat. Next, I have the spring in place, so now I'm going to use the vehicle jack to jack the vehicle up and hopefully compress that spring enough to where I can get this shock aligned. Okay, I jacked the vehicle up until it came just barely off of the jack stand, so the jack stand's loose. So that's going to be all the weight that's going to come and put on those springs and get this shock as close as it'll be. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this strap and get the bottom of this bolt and this shock in place, and then I'm going to take the spring compressors loose and get those out of the way. If you're quick, when you cut this shock strap, you can slide that bolt in as it tries to guide past. Other than that, you'll have to jack up the bottom of the shock to get the bolt in. Now that that bolt's in, and I'm going to jack the car up just a little bit to make sure that the weight of the vehicle is off of that that jack stand, then I'm going to take these spring compressors loose and remove them. Okay, I got the spring suppressors out. The bottom of the spring is seated right. I'm going to make sure the top is seated right. I got the bolts in the shocks. I'm going to go ahead and torque those down to 60 foot-pounds. And you got to be careful how you have those spring compressors in. I almost thought I was not going to be able to get those out, but I pulled the bolts all the way out of the top sides, and then I was able to rotate the top pieces to where they did finally fall out. But that was a little bit scary. So be careful how you get those positioned. Don't get them wedged in there where you can't get them out. So let me tighten these bolts down to whatever torque you feel comfortable with. 40 will probably work, but I'm gonna do 60. Okay, when I'm in here behind the wheel, I see this little arm that comes over to what I hope is the level sensor. So I unplug the level sensor so it doesn't give the suspension any kind of signal to turn that pump on. Hopefully that's all I have to do. If you want to try to zip tie it or something, you can. Other than that, it's probably going to start taking on dirt if you don't tape it off or something. So I'm going to put a piece of tape over both sides of that plug in case somebody ever wants to go back with it or something. And then I'm going to put the wheel on and do the other side. Okay, the shock bolts are 18 millimeter, and I did torque them to 60 foot-pounds. This is the torque wrench I used, so use one that you know works. Then I set the wheel in place. I spun all the bolts down, but they're not tight. So now I'm going to lower the vehicle onto the wheel. Then I'm going to torque these wheel bolts. The owner's manual says 100 foot-pounds. You torque this bolt, then go across that bolt, come across this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, then that bolt. So you crisscross around so you torque it evenly and you don't damage your drums or rotors. If you feel that this information was useful, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can subscribe to my channel so that you will get notifications of future videos that I post. You can follow me on Twitter, and if you need to contact me directly, please visit my website. And if you have any questions, leave them below, and someone or myself will reply to them. Again, thank you very much for watching.